Lena Carter was tired, bone tired, the kind of tired that made her bones feel heavy and her head fuzzy. She had been on her feet all day, running back and forth at the diner where she worked. Her shoes were worn out, her legs ached, and her mind felt like it was stuck in a fog. But she didn't have time to stop. Not yet. Maya, her 6-year-old daughter, was waiting for her at home. The bus ride home was always the hardest part of Lena's day. After working 2 shifts, one in the morning and one late into the evening, she barely had enough energy to keep her eyes open. Still, she forced herself to stay awake. Falling asleep on public transportation wasn't safe, or so she told herself every night. But tonight, her body had other plans. As the bus rattled along its usual route, Lena leaned her head against the cool window. Outside, the city lights blurred together as rain streaked down the glass. The rhythmic hum of the engine and the gentle sway of the bus lulled her into a half-dreaming state. Her thoughts drifted to Maya, her sweet little girl with curly hair, and endless questions about everything. Just imagining Maya's smile gave Lena the strength to get through each day. But tonight, even the thought of Maya couldn't keep Lena awake. Her eyelids grew heavier, and before she knew it, her head began to tilt sideways. There was no one sitting next to her, or so she thought. As her head slowly dropped onto the shoulder of the man beside her, Lena didn't notice. She was already asleep. The man, however, did notice. His name was Daniel Reyes, and he was dressed in a sharp suit that looked far too expensive for this rickety old bus. He glanced down at the woman resting awkwardly against him. At first, he considered waking her up. Then he saw how exhausted she looked. Dark circles hung under her eyes, and her shoulders slumped as though carrying the weight of the world. Whatever her story was, it clearly wasn't easy. Instead of nudging her awake, Daniel shifted slightly to make her more comfortable. He figured she must have had a rough day. Who could blame her? This city chewed people up and spat them out without a second thought. So he let her sleep. Besides, it wasn't often someone trusted him enough to fall asleep on his shoulder. Most people kept their distance from strangers on buses, especially men in suits who looked like they belonged in boardrooms rather than crowded public transport. For a while, everything was quiet. The bus rolled on, stopping occasionally to pick up or drop off passengers. Lena stirred once or twice, but never fully woke. Each time she moved, Daniel adjusted his position just enough to keep her steady. He didn't mind. In fact, he found himself watching her curiously. There was something about her that stood out, not because she was extraordinary, but because she seemed so ordinary. And yet, there was a quiet resilience in the way she carried herself, even in sleep. About halfway through the ride, the bus hit a pothole. The sudden jolt sent Lena jerking upright, her eyes snapping open. For a moment, she stared straight ahead, disoriented. Then reality came crashing back. She realized where she was, and whose shoulder she'd been using as a pillow. "Oh my gosh," she exclaimed, pulling away quickly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "It's okay," Daniel interrupted, holding up a hand to stop her apology. His voice was calm and reassuring. "Really, it's fine. You looked like you needed the rest." Lena blushed, embarrassed. "Still, I shouldn't have done that. I don't even know you." Daniel chuckled softly. "No harm done. Honestly, it's nice to see someone actually get some sleep around here." His words helped ease her embarrassment, but Lena still felt flustered. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and glanced at the floor. "Well, thanks for being understanding. I've just had a long day." "I can tell," Daniel said, studying her face. "You work hard, don't you?" She nodded. "2 jobs. It's not much, but it pays the bills." "Sounds tough," he replied. "What do you do?" "I waitress at a diner downtown," Lena explained. And I clean offices at night. Nothing glamorous, but it keeps food on the table. Daniel tilted his head, genuinely interested. That's admirable. A lot of people wouldn't be able to handle that kind of schedule. Lena shrugged modestly. You do what you have to. For your family, right? My daughter, she's worth it. At the mention of her daughter, Lena's expression softened. Daniel noticed the change immediately. There was a warmth in her eyes that hadn't been there before, a spark of love and pride that lit up her whole face. You're lucky to have her, he said after a pause. Kids are a gift. Yeah, Lena agreed, smiling faintly. Even when they drive me crazy. They shared a small laugh, and for a moment, the tension between them melted away. Lena relaxed a little, feeling less awkward about what had happened. Daniel seemed nice enough, even if he was a stranger. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd overstepped some invisible boundary by falling asleep on him. Before she could dwell on it too much, the bus lurched to a stop. Daniel glanced out the window and stood up, grabbing his briefcase from the seat beside him. This is my stop, he said, turning back to Lena. Take care of yourself, okay? And your daughter, too. Thanks, Lena replied, offering him a grateful smile. And thanks again for letting me crash on your shoulder. Weirdly enough, I think I actually feel better now. No problem, Daniel said with a grin. Good night. With that, he stepped off the bus, disappearing into the rainy night. Lena watched him go, shaking her head in disbelief. What were the odds of meeting someone so kind on a random bus ride? She decided to count herself lucky. As the bus started moving again, Lena reached down to adjust her bag. That's when she noticed something strange, a small, smooth object lying on the seat where Daniel had been sitting. It looked like a flat black stone, no bigger than her palm, with faint glowing lines etched across its surface. Picking it up, she turned it over in her hands, trying to figure out what it was. What on earth? She muttered under her breath. The device didn't look like anything she'd ever seen before. It wasn't a phone, a wallet, or any kind of gadget she recognized. Yet there was something oddly familiar about it, as if it had been waiting for her to find it all along. Pocketing the mysterious object, Lena leaned back in her seat, wondering who Daniel really was and why he'd left such a peculiar thing behind. When Lena finally got home, the apartment was quiet. Maya was already asleep in her tiny bedroom, curled up under a patchwork quilt that Lena had sewn herself years ago. The soft glow of a nightlight cast shadows on the walls, making the room feel cozy despite its small size. Lena tiptoed past Maya's door, careful not to wake her, and collapsed onto the worn-out couch in the living room. She set her bag down on the coffee table and pulled out the strange object Daniel had left behind. Holding it up to the light, she examined it closely. It looked like a smooth black stone, but it wasn't heavy like one. Instead, it felt warm to the touch, almost alive. The faint glowing lines etched across its surface pulsed gently, as though they were breathing. What is this thing? Lena muttered to herself, turning it over in her hands. It doesn't look like anything from around here. Her curiosity got the better of her. Setting the object down on the table, she grabbed her phone and opened a search engine. She typed in descriptions like black stone with glowing lines and mysterious tech device, but none of the results matched what she was holding. Frustrated, she leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. Maybe it's just some weird paperweight or something, she said aloud, trying to convince herself that it wasn't important. But deep down, she knew there was more to it. Something about the way it glowed, and the fact that Daniel had left it behind, felt significant. Deciding to test it out, Lena tapped the surface lightly with her finger. At first, nothing happened. Then, ever so slightly, the glowing lines brightened. Lena gasped, pulling her hand back instinctively. The device didn't move or make a sound, but the pulsing light grew stronger, filling the dimly lit room with a soft, otherworldly glow. "Okay, that's weird," Lena whispered, her heart racing. She reached out again, this time pressing her palm flat against the surface. The moment her skin made contact, the lights in the apartment flickered. For a split second, everything went dark before. The bulbs flared back to life, brighter than before. Lena jumped to her feet, startled. What the heck? Before she could process what had just happened, a small voice called out from the hallway. "Mommy?" Turning quickly, Lena saw Maya standing in the doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Her daughter's curly hair stuck out in every direction, and her favorite stuffed bunny dangled loosely from one hand. "Hey, sweetheart," Lena said, forcing a smile. "Did I wake you up?" Maya shook her head. "No, I heard something funny." "What's that glowy thing?" Lena hesitated, unsure how to explain what she didn't even understand herself. "It's just, something I found on the bus. Nothing special." Maya's eyes widened with excitement. "Can I see?" Reluctantly, Lena picked up the device and handed it to her daughter. As soon as Maya touched it, the glowing lines began to pulse faster, reacting to her presence. The little girl giggled, delighted by the colorful display. "It likes me," Maya exclaimed, cradling the device in both hands. "Look, Mommy, it's dancing." Lena watched in amazement as the object seemed to respond to Maya's movements. Every time she tilted it or waved it around, the patterns shifted and changed, creating intricate designs that shimmered in the air like holograms. "This doesn't make any sense," Lena murmured, shaking her head. "How does it even work?" Maya grinned mischievously. "Maybe it's magic. Or maybe it's broken," Lena countered, though she didn't really believe it. There was something too deliberate about the way the device reacted. It wasn't random or chaotic. It was as if it understood then that, after a few minutes of playing with the mysterious object, Maya yawned loudly. "I'm sleepy now. Come on, let's get you back to bed," Lena said, gently taking the device from her daughter's hands. She tucked Maya back into bed, kissed her forehead, and turned off the nightlight. Back in the living room, Lena sat cross-legged on the floor, the device resting in her lap. She stared at it for a long time, trying to figure out what to do next. Should she try to find Daniel? Or should she just leave it alone and forget about it? In the end, her curiosity won out. Grabbing her laptop, she decided to dig deeper into who Daniel Reyes really was. She started with a quick Google search, typing his name into the search bar. To her surprise, several results popped up, but none of them made much sense. The first link led to an article about a tech executive named Daniel Reyes, who had recently been promoted to CEO of a major company. The photo accompanying the article showed a man who looked exactly like the person Lena had met on the bus. But when she clicked on the link, the page redirected her to an error message, saying the content was unavailable. Confused, Lena tried another result. This one claimed Daniel was part of a research team working on advanced artificial intelligence. Again, the information seemed promising at first, but when she tried to access the details, the website wouldn't load. Frustrated, Lena scrolled through more links, hoping to find something concrete. What she discovered instead only added to the mystery. Some articles mentioned Daniel in connection with companies that didn't exist, or at least weren't listed anywhere else online. Others hinted at projects involving empathy-based technology, whatever that meant. This guy is either super secretive or... Lena trailed off, unable to finish the thought. The pieces didn't fit together, no matter how hard she tried to connect them. Giving up on the internet, Lena turned her attention back to the device. She placed it on the table and studied it carefully, looking for any buttons or switches that might activate it further. There were none, just the smooth surface and the glowing lines that continued to pulse softly as she sat there. Lost in thought, the device suddenly emitted a low hum. Startled, Lena leaned closer, watching as the patterns on its surface began to shift. Slowly, shapes formed within the light shapes that looked like words dotted first. The letters were jumbled and hard to read. But as Lena focused on them, they rearranged themselves into a clear message. Compatibility scan complete. Subject, Lena Carter. Status, positive. Her breath caught in her throat. What does that mean? She whispered, reaching out to touch. The device again. As soon as her fingers brushed against it, the message disappeared, replaced by another, waiting for secondary confirmation. Please stand by. Lena's mind raced. Was this some kind of prank? A marketing gimmick? Or was it something else entirely? Whatever it was, it felt far beyond anything she'd ever encountered before. Just then, the lights in the apartment flickered again, drawing her attention to the window. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective under the dim glow of streetlights. But there was something else, a faint shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising off pavement. Lena stood up, clutching the device tightly. In her hand. She wasn't sure what was happening, but one thing was certain. Her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The shimmer outside Lena's window grew brighter as she stood frozen, clutching the strange device in her hand. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she wasn't sure whether to run, hide, or simply scream. The glowing object pulsed rhythmically, almost as if it were alive, responding to whatever was happening outside. Just as Lena considered grabbing Maya and heading for the door, a soft knock sounded from the other side of her apartment entrance. She froze, her eyes darting between the window and the door. Who could possibly be visiting her at this hour? And how did they know where she lived? Cautiously, she crept toward the door, holding the device tightly. Peering through the peephole, she saw Daniel standing there, still dressed in his sharp suit, but now looking slightly disheveled. His expression was apologetic, and he held up both hands in a gesture of peace. I know this looks weird, he said softly, his voice muffled through the door. But I need to explain something. Please, let me in. Lena hesitated. Part of her wanted to slam the lock and call the police. But another part, the part that had trusted him enough to fall asleep on his shoulder, told her to hear him out. After a moment, she unlocked the door and opened it just wide enough to see him. Clearly, what are you doing here? She asked, her tone sharp but not unkind. And what is this thing you left behind? Daniel glanced down at the device in her hand and sighed. I was hoping I'd get to you before it activated. Looks like I underestimated how quickly it would respond. Respond? Lena repeated, her brow furrowing. What are you talking about? Daniel stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, closing the door behind him. He looked around the small apartment, taking in the cozy chaos of toys scattered on the floor and laundry piled neatly in a corner. For a brief moment, his face softened, as if he found something comforting in the scene. Can we sit down? He asked gently. This might take a minute to explain. Reluctantly, Lena nodded and led him to the couch. She sat across from him, keeping the device firmly in her lap. Start talking, she said, her voice firm. And don't leave anything out. Daniel took a deep breath, then began. First off, my name really is Daniel Reyes. That part's true, but I'm not exactly human. Lena blinked, unsure she'd heard him correctly. Not human? What does that mean? It means I'm part of an interstellar alliance, a group of species working together to explore the universe and find potential allies. My job is to observe planets like Earth and determine whether their inhabitants are ready to join us. Lena stared at him, her mind struggling to process what he was saying. You're telling me you're some kind of alien? Not entirely. Daniel clarified. I'm a hybrid, a mix of human and another species. It helps me blend in while I'm here. But yes, technically, I'm not fully human. For a long moment, Lena didn't say anything. She glanced down at the device in her lap, then back at Daniel. And this thing? Is it yours? Yes, Daniel admitted. It's called a compatibility key. We use it to identify individuals who show qualities we value, things like empathy, selflessness, and resilience. When it activates, it means the person has passed a test of sorts. They've demonstrated traits that make them compatible with our alliance. Lena frowned, shaking her head. Wait, so you're saying I passed some alien test? How? I didn't even know I was being tested. That's the beauty of it, Daniel explained with a small smile. You weren't supposed to know. The key scans for genuine behavior, not actions performed because someone's watching. On the bus today, you helped an elderly man carry his groceries onto the vehicle. You comforted a teenager who was crying because she missed her stop. Those moments mattered more than you realize. Lena felt a lump rise in her throat. She remembered those interactions vividly. They were small, insignificant acts she hadn't thought twice about. To think they'd been observed, analyzed, and deemed important by whoever Daniel worked for was overwhelming. But why me? She asked quietly. There are millions of people on this planet. Why pick me? Daniel leaned forward, his gaze steady. Because you're extraordinary, Lena. Not because you have superpowers or special skills, but because you care. You put others first, even when you're exhausted and struggling yourself. That's rare, especially among species we've encountered. Lena felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them away quickly, unwilling to let herself cry in front of this stranger, even if he claimed to be part alien. So what happens now? Are you going to beam me aboard a spaceship or something? Daniel chuckled, though his expression remained serious. Nothing quite so dramatic. At least, not yet. First, I need to confirm the key's findings. That's why it's reacting so strongly. It's waiting for secondary confirmation. Once that's done, we'll decide the next steps. Secondary confirmation? Lena echoed, confused. What does that mean? It means testing how you interact with others, Daniel explained. Specifically, someone close to you. Someone who matters deeply. Lena's stomach sank as realization dawned. You mean Maya? Daniel nodded. Yes. If the key responds positively to her presence and yours together, it confirms what we already suspect. You're exactly the kind of person we're looking for. Lena tightened her grip on the device, feeling a surge of protectiveness wash over her. You're not experimenting on my daughter, she said firmly. Whatever this is, leave her out of it. I understand your concern, Daniel replied calmly, but trust me, this isn't dangerous. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The key thrives on positive energy. It won't harm her or you in any way. Before Lena could argue further, the device in her lap began to glow brighter. Its patterns shifted rapidly, forming new shapes and colors that danced across the surface. Both Lena and Daniel watched in silence as the message appeared once more. Secondary scan complete. Subject: Maya Carter. Connection established. Status: positive. Lena exhaled sharply, her shoulders slumping in relief. Whatever the device had done, it seemed harmless. Still, she couldn't shake the unease settling in her chest. So what now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Do I sign up for some kind of galactic membership? Or do I wake up tomorrow and realize this was all a dream? Daniel smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. It's not a dream, Lena. And no, you don't have to commit to anything right away. This is just the beginning. If you're willing, I'd like to offer you a chance to learn more, to see what we're building and how you can help. Lena hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. Help with what? Helping us understand humanity, Daniel said simply. Showing us what makes your species truly remarkable. As he spoke, Lena glanced toward Maya's bedroom, where her daughter slept soundly, unaware of the strange turn her mother's life had taken. Despite her doubts and fears, one thing was clear. Lena would do anything to protect Maya, and if that meant learning more about Daniel and his world, she was willing to try. Okay, she said finally, meeting Daniel's gaze. Tell me what I need to do. Lena spent the next few days thinking about what Daniel had said. She couldn't stop replaying their conversation in her mind. The idea of helping an interstellar alliance sounded exciting, almost too exciting, but it also scared her. What if she messed up? What if something went wrong and Maya got hurt? Maya was the most important person in Lena's life. Everything Lena did, from working 2 jobs to skipping meals when money was tight, was for her daughter. So when Daniel mentioned that this mission would involve traveling and meeting new people, Lena's first thought was, what about Maya? She tried to push the question aside, telling herself it was just a temporary distraction. But the glowing device sitting on her kitchen counter kept reminding her of the decision she had to make. It pulsed softly, almost as if it were waiting for her answer. One evening, after tucking Maya into bed, Lena sat at the table with a cup of tea. The device rested in front of her, its faint light casting shadows on the walls. She stared at it, trying to imagine what her life might look like if she said yes to Daniel's offer. Mommy? Maya's sleepy voice broke the silence. Lena turned to see her daughter standing in the doorway, clutching her stuffed bunny. Hey, sweetheart, she said gently. I thought you were asleep. I heard noises, Maya mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Then she noticed the glowing object on the table. What's that? Lena hesitated, unsure how much to tell her. It's, a special rock I found. It lights up sometimes. Cool, Maya exclaimed, running over to get a closer look. Can I touch it? Sure, Lena replied, handing it to her carefully. As soon as Maya touched the device, the glowing lines brightened, swirling into intricate patterns that danced across the surface. Maya giggled, delighted by the display. It likes me, she said, holding it up to inspect it further. Does it talk? No, it doesn't talk, Lena answered, smiling despite her worries. But it does seem to like you. Maya grinned and handed the device back. Can we keep it? That depends, Lena said, setting the object down. We might have to give it back someday. Maya frowned, clearly disappointed. Why? Well, Lena paused, searching for the right words. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? Finally, she decided to keep it simple. This rock belongs to a friend of mine. He wants to use it to help people, and he thinks I can help too. Help how? Maya asked, tilting her head curiously. He wants me to show others how nice people can be, Lena explained. Like when we share our snacks or help someone who's sad. That's what makes people happy, and this rock helps them feel even better. Maya nodded slowly, absorbing the information. So you're going to be a superhero? Lena laughed softly. Not exactly. More like a helper. Cool, Maya said, her excitement returning. You should do it, Mommy. You're really good at helping people. Lena smiled, feeling a lump rise in her throat. Hearing those words from her daughter meant more than Maya could possibly understand. Still, doubts lingered in the back of her mind. What if this helper role took her away from Maya too often? What if something happened while she was gone? The next morning, Lena called Daniel. She needed answers before making a final decision. He arrived at her apartment within the hour, carrying a sleek black briefcase. His suit was as sharp as ever, but his expression was warm and approachable. You wanted to talk? He asked, sitting across from her at the kitchen table. Yes, Lena said, getting straight to the point. I need to know what this job really involves. Will I have to leave Earth? Will I miss out on time with my daughter? I can't risk losing her. Daniel nodded, understanding her concerns. Let me reassure you, it's not about leaving Earth. At least not yet. For now, your role is local. You'll identify others like yourself, people who show the same qualities of kindness and empathy. We'll provide tools and resources to help them grow, but it won't require constant travel. And Maya? Lena pressed. How does she fit into all this? She fits however you want her to, Daniel replied honestly. If you'd rather she stays out of it completely, that's fine. But if you think she'd benefit from being involved through advanced learning opportunities, for example, we can arrange that too. Lena raised an eyebrow. Advanced learning opportunities? Daniel opened his briefcase and pulled out a small tablet-like device. He tapped a few buttons, and a holographic image appeared above the table. It showed a classroom filled with children interacting with glowing objects, similar to Lena's device. These programs are designed to enhance creativity and problem-solving skills, Daniel explained. They're tailored to each child's interests and abilities. If Maya participates, she'll gain access to knowledge and experiences far beyond what traditional schools can offer. Lena stared at the hologram, torn between excitement and caution. The idea of giving Maya such incredible opportunities was tempting, but so was keeping her safe and grounded. She didn't want her daughter growing up too fast or feeling pressured to live up to impossible standards. What's the catch? She asked finally. There's always a catch. There's no catch, Daniel assured her. This isn't about forcing anyone to do anything. It's about empowering them to reach their full potential. Whatever decision you make, it's yours to own. Lena leaned back in her chair, letting his words sink in. She glanced at the glowing device on the table, then at Maya, who was coloring quietly in the living room. Her heart ached with the weight of responsibility, but also with possibility. Maybe this was her chance to give Maya a future she'd only dreamed of. Finally, she spoke. Okay, I'll do it. But on one condition, Maya comes first. Always. Daniel smiled, visibly relieved. Agreed. You won't regret this, Lena. Neither will she. Over the next week, Lena began her training. Daniel introduced her to other members of the Alliance, explaining their roles and responsibilities. Some were hybrids like him, while others were fully human. Each person brought something unique to the team, whether it was teaching, healing, or simply listening. Lena quickly realized that her instincts had been right. This wasn't about flashy gadgets or grand gestures. It was about connection. Whether she was visiting a community center or speaking to a group of volunteers, the goal was always the same: to remind people of their own goodness and inspire them to keep going. As she settled into her new role, Lena felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known in years. For so long, she'd been focused on survival, on making ends meet and protecting Maya from the world. Now, she was part of something bigger, something that celebrated the best parts of humanity. And through it all, Maya remained her anchor. Every night, after a long day of meetings and introductions, Lena returned home to find her daughter waiting with open arms. Together, they explored the wonders of the Alliance's technology, marveling at the possibilities it offered. One evening, as they sat side by side watching a holographic galaxy spin above their heads, Maya looked up at her mother with wide eyes. Do you think aliens are nice, Mommy? Lena smiled, pulling her close. Some of them are, and some of them are still learning, just like us. But you're helping them, right? Maya asked. That's right, Lena replied, kissing the top of her head. And maybe someday, you'll help them too. Maya beamed, clearly proud of her mom. You're the best helper ever. Lena chuckled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. No matter where this journey took her, she knew one thing for certain. As long as she had Maya by her side, she could face anything. Over the next few days, Lena's life changed in small but meaningful ways. After agreeing to work with Daniel, she learned more about the Interstellar Alliance and its mission. They weren't looking for soldiers or scientists they wanted. People who understood humanity at its core. People like Lena, who could show them what it meant to care, to connect, and to make sacrifices for others. At first, Lena was hesitant. She worried about how this new role would affect Maya, but Daniel reassured her that her daughter would always come first. This isn't about leaving Earth, he explained. It's about helping us understand it and helping others here see their own potential. Lena decided to give it a try. She started by meeting other humans who had been identified by the compatibility key. Some were teachers, others were nurses, volunteers, or even stay-at-home parents. Each person had one thing in common. They put others before themselves, often without expecting anything in return. One of the first people Lena met was an elderly woman named Margaret. Margaret ran a community garden in a low-income neighborhood, teaching kids how to grow vegetables and cook healthy meals. When Lena visited, she saw firsthand how much joy Margaret brought to the children. The kids laughed as they dug in the dirt, proudly showing off their tiny sprouts and asking endless questions about plants. Margaret smiled warmly. When Lena introduced herself, "So, you're one of Daniel's recruits?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "Don't worry, dear. You'll get used to all the strange gadgets and glowing rocks soon enough." Lena laughed nervously. "I hope so. It's still hard to believe any of this is real. It feels like a dream sometimes," Margaret admitted. "But once you see how much good we can do, it starts to feel normal. Just think of it as helping people, but on a bigger scale." As Lena spent more time with Margaret and others like her, she began to understand what Daniel meant about humanity's potential. These individuals didn't have superpowers or advanced technology. They had kindness, patience, and determination. And those qualities were exactly what the Alliance valued most. Daniel stayed close during these early days, guiding Lena and answering her endless questions. He showed her how the compatibility key worked, explaining that it wasn't just a tool for testing. It was also a way to amplify positive emotions. "Think of it as a mirror," he said. "It reflects the best parts of who you are and helps others see them too." Lena tested this theory one afternoon when she brought the device to Maya's school. Her daughter's teacher, Miss Kelly, had been struggling with her class lately. The kids were restless, and no matter what she tried, they couldn't seem to focus. Lena offered to help, bringing along the glowing stone as a kind of experiment. When Ms. Kelly held the device, something incredible happened. The classroom grew quieter, almost as if the children could feel the calm radiating from it. One boy who rarely spoke raised his hand to answer a question. Another girl, who usually sat alone, joined a group activity without being asked. By the end of the day, Ms. Kelly was smiling brighter than Lena had seen in weeks. "This is amazing," the teacher said, holding the device gently. "What is it?" "It's complicated," Lena replied, choosing her words carefully. "But basically, it helps bring out the best in people. Just don't tell anyone I let you borrow it, okay?" Miss Kelly laughed. "Your secret's safe with me." Word spread quickly among Lena's friends and neighbors about the mysterious stone she carried around. At first, they were skeptical. After all, Lena wasn't exactly known for being tech-savvy. But when they saw the effects it had, they couldn't deny its power. Soon, everyone wanted to try it, from the grocery store clerk to the librarian. Down the street, Lena made sure to use the device wisely, sharing it only with those who needed a little extra encouragement. She noticed subtle changes wherever she went. Strangers smiled more often. Arguments dissolved faster. Even the grumpy old man who lived upstairs started saying hello in the hallway. Through it all, Daniel watched quietly, taking notes and occasionally offering advice. "You're doing great," he told her one evening as they sat together on her couch. "The Alliance is impressed, not just with you, but with everyone you've inspired." Lena shook her head, embarrassed. "I'm not doing anything special. I'm just pointing out what's already there." "Exactly," Daniel said with a grin. "That's why you're perfect for this job. You don't try to change people, you remind them of who they really are." As the weeks turned into months, Lena grew more confident in her role. She traveled to different cities, meeting others who had been identified by the compatibility key. Some were nervous at first, unsure of what was expected. Lena's days became a mix of ordinary and extraordinary. On one hand, she still worked at the diner, cleaned offices at night, and made sure Maya had everything she needed. On the other hand, she was now part of something much bigger than herself, something that stretched far beyond Earth. She didn't wear a cape or carry a weapon. Instead, she carried the glowing device everywhere she went, using it to remind people of their own goodness. One evening, after a long day of traveling to meet new recruits, Lena sat on a park bench watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and the air smelled fresh after a light rain. Maya played nearby, chasing butterflies with a group of children she'd met earlier. Lena smiled as she watched her daughter laugh, completely carefree. "You've done more than we ever expected," Daniel said, sitting beside her. He held a notebook in his hands, filled with notes about the people Lena had introduced him to. "The Alliance is amazed by what you've accomplished." Lena shrugged modestly. "I didn't do anything special. I just showed them who they already are." "That's exactly why it's so powerful," Daniel replied. "Most species don't recognize their own potential. They wait for someone else to tell them they're capable of greatness. But humans? You prove yourselves every single day, even when no one is looking." Lena thought about that for a moment. It was true she had seen countless examples of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. A teenager volunteering at an animal shelter. A construction worker helping an elderly woman cross the street. A mother working 2 jobs to give her kids a better life. These acts might seem small, but together they created something beautiful. "What happens next?" Lena asked, glancing at Daniel. "Do I keep doing this forever? Or will you take the device away someday?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "That's up to you. If you want to continue, there's no reason to stop. But if you feel like you've done enough, we'll find another way to honor your contribution." Lena looked down at the glowing stone resting in her lap. It had become more than just a tool. It was a symbol of hope, not only for her, but for everyone she'd touched along the way. "I think I'll keep going," she said finally. "At least for now. There's still so much good out there waiting to be discovered." Daniel nodded, clearly pleased with her decision. "You've inspired others to join us too. Not just here on Earth, but across the galaxy. Your story has become a legend among the Alliance. The woman who passed the test without even knowing she was being tested." Lena laughed softly. "Sounds like something out of a movie." "In a way, it is," Daniel admitted. "But it's real. And it's because of people like you that we believe humanity has a bright future ahead." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park, Lena felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. For so long, she'd focused on surviving, on keeping food on the table, and making sure Maya had a roof over her head. Now she realized she was thriving. Her kindness had opened doors she never imagined existed, and her resilience had shown others what it meant to truly shine. A few weeks later, Daniel returned to check on Lena and Maya. This time, he brought a gift, a small educational toy designed by the Alliance. It looked like a cube, but when Maya touched it, it transformed into a holographic globe, showing images of planets, stars, and galaxies. For your daughter, Daniel explained, handing it to Lena. She's curious about the universe, isn't she? Lena nodded, her eyes misty with gratitude. She's always asking questions. This will keep her busy for hours. Maya squealed with delight as she played with the toy, spinning the hologram and pointing at different constellations. Mommy, look! That one looks like a bunny. Lena chuckled, ruffling her daughter's hair. Maybe that's where the Easter bunny lives. Later that night, after Maya had gone to bed, Lena stood by the window, gazing at the stars. She thought about how far she'd come since that rainy bus ride months ago. Back then, she'd been just another struggling single mom, trying to get through the day. Now, she was an ambassador for humanity, helping bridge the gap between worlds. The glowing device pulsed softly on the table beside her, its patterns shifting lazily in the dark. Lena picked it up and held it close, feeling its warmth spread through her fingers. It wasn't magic or technology. It was proof that even the smallest acts of kindness could change the universe. Thank you, she whispered, not sure if she was talking to Daniel, the Alliance, or simply the stars above. Outside, the bus rattled past, its headlights cutting through the quiet street. Lena smiled, remembering how it all began with a nap on a stranger's shoulder and a mysterious object left behind. Life had a funny way of surprising you, she thought. Sometimes, the most unexpected moments led to the greatest adventures. And as she turned off the light and climbed into bed, Lena knew one thing for certain. No matter what happened next, she would face it with courage, compassion, and an unshakable belief in the power of humanity. Would you like me to export this part as a separate document opening parenthesis .docx or .pdf? Or should I compile the entire story into one file for you? Let me know.